Hi lovely people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Layla, and on this channel I talk about my life in Korea and also about personal development, which I am very much passionate about. As some of you may know or may not know, I have celebrated my first year in Korea. It was on August 14th, 2021. And I decided, you know what, why don't I talk about my experience during that 1 year? And I wanted to focus on 4 different areas that I think are important. One would be finance, the second one would be about mindset, the third one about dating, social life, and the fourth one would be about learning Korean, the process of learning Korean. So in today's video, I'm going to focus on 2 themes, finance and mindset. So if you're interested, keep on watching. Okay, so let's get started and let's talk about money. So I have my phone here. I will be looking at it from time to time because I have all my notes. So I'm assuming the number one question is how much money have I spent in Korea in a year? So roughly from August 2020 to August 2021, as far as living expenses, money spent in Korea, it was a little over $17,000. That might be a lot for some of you. It might not be a lot for some of you, but I think it's important to put that in a specific context, the context of my lifestyle. And if you want to have an idea of the type of lifestyle that I have here in Korea, then I would recommend you go watch my video called Cost of Living in Korea. I'm going to put that in the description below. And if you feel like this is also the type of lifestyle that you want to have, then $17,000 would be something you could consider. If you feel like my lifestyle was too boring and you want to, do more, then you would have to obviously budget for a bit more. I also have a video called Budget Korea Breakdown. And if you watch this video, you would understand the process that I went through to budget for my trip and also how much money I had prior to coming to Korea. Okay, now let's move on to budgeting. There's a disclaimer that I would like to provide because I think it's very important that you keep that in mind. I made that mistake and it almost cost me. So if you can avoid doing that, that would be great. When it comes to moving into a new country, it doesn't matter if it's Korea or somewhere else, you have 2 types, I believe, 2 types of move. You have a temporary move, meaning that you have a beginning date and an end date. So you're coming to Korea to study Korean and then you're going to go back home, or you're coming to Korea for a sabbatical and then you're going back home. These are very easy to budget because again, you have a beginning and you have an end. And then there is another type of move that I would call a fluid move, which is the move that I decided to do, which is basically you have a beginning date, but you do not have an end date because you're coming here to figure things out and stay as long as possible. So obviously when you don't have an end date, then it becomes hard to budget and know exactly how much money you would need, right? So if this is what you're trying to do, I would highly recommend that when you save that money, which is a great thing, make sure you also have a source of income that's gonna come every single month. Very important. And I don't care what it is, I don't care where it comes from, as long as you have something coming in every month. That's going to be your salvation. When I planned my move to Korea, which happened to be a fluid move, I did not think of getting that source of income. I was lucky because 2 weeks prior to coming to Korea, I got the opportunity of, receiving monthly income. So that's basically what saved me. But without that, I promise you, I would not be here talking to you right now. So don't make that same mistake. And as you're focusing on saving your money, also focus on getting that source or those sources of income to save you. And this is basically what's going to happen. So when you plan your fluid move, you're going to have a grace period. It could be 6 months, it could be a year. You just have to be realistic. And that grace period is basically the time that you're going to give yourself to make things happen. So you're going to budget for that grace period, and then you're going to rely on your monthly income as a buffer, as something that's going to alleviate any stress that you may have. Because there's nothing worse than trying to make your dream come true and worrying about money all the time. So if you combine those two together, then you would have a way better experience. All right, so life in Korea is cheaper. I lived in Boston prior to coming here, and compared to Boston, oh God, it's cheaper, way cheaper. Rent is cheaper, food is cheaper, entertainment is cheaper, and you also have like way more variety of entertainment. And you do things with people all the time, and you end up sharing the cost, which is also a good thing. When you go to a restaurant, you share the food, you share the cost. When you do an activity, you share the cost as well. So you would have this impression, especially if you're, coming with US dollars, or if you're coming with euros, your money is going to go a long way. And you're going to feel like, oh my God, I'm balling. But be careful. So this is pretty much the mindset, or what's going to happen to you, because that's what happened to me, right? So you get to Korea and you are excited because you've made your dream come true, and you're just excited. You want to try everything. You want to travel in Korea. You want to try as many food as possible, do as many activities as possible. You're just like completely energized. And then you're looking at your bank account and you see $17,000 or $20,000 and you feel like you're rich. But the truth is, this money is going to have to be divided by the number of months you're going to stay in a country, right? So you're technically not rich, but you're going to have this impression that you are rich. And what's going to happen is the first few months, you're going to go crazy. And it might not be crazy as in, oh, I'm going to spend $1,000 and buy something very expensive. It's going to be the little things that you're not going to pay attention to. And next thing you know, after 3 months, you're looking at your expenses and you're looking at your bank account and you're like, oh my God, what happened, right? And you don't want that. I don't want that for you. So the same energy that you had back home, remember when you were trying to save your money and you were trying to, put as much in your saving account, that mindset, those habits, bring them with you in Korea. And as you arrive, make sure you also have a budget every month, right? Make sure you control your expenses, make sure you have a look at what you're doing, because again, you need to make sure your money goes a long way. Don't YOLO your life away, because trust me, you only live once is good, but at the end of the day, life is long. Life is freaking long. And you do not want to be taking the risk of putting yourself in a precarious position, especially in a country that is not yours. And so just don't do that, right? Now you might think, okay, Leila, but I've worked very hard. I came here, I want to enjoy myself. Why do I have to have a budget? I mean, I don't want a restriction. I understand, but here's the thing with budgeting, right? It's about just being honest with yourself and allocating things based on what is important to you. So as you're doing your budget, if you're someone, you love shopping and you feel like you're going to come to Korea and you're a fashionista and you want to shop a lot, okay, then when you do your budget, put a lot of money, allocate that for shopping, and then reduce expenses for entertainment, for food, and stuff like that. If you are more of a social butterfly and you don't care about shopping, then make your entertainment budget bigger than the rest. It's just about allocating. So you have 100 and you can divide those 100. So you can put 30 here, 20 here, and that way you're not going to feel like you are, restricting yourself, right? So just do your budget that way, but please keep track, because you do not want to be spending things the first few months, and then when you look at the remaining month and you look at the remaining balance in your saving account, you start panicking because you've been careless. And I've done that. And in December, when I did my annual stuff, I realized that, you burned a lot of cash. So be careful, okay? Be careful. All right, so something else that I want to talk about when it comes to finance, before we move on to the next subject, is you are the only person who knows how much money you have in your bank account. Be honest with yourself and be honest with your expectations. What I'm trying to say is, don't try to impress people, because you're going to get here and you want to show people that you're having a good time, that your life is great, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to start doing experiences or stuff that you cannot afford just to impress people. This is a waste of time, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be in your room with you eating, I don't know, ramyun or whatever, just because you blew up your budget, right? So just be mindful of that. And also you will be surrounded by people who want to do different type of activities. If you cannot afford it, don't be afraid to say no. You don't have to explain in depth the reason why, but just say, hey, this is not in my budget for this month. I'm sorry, I can't go. And this is something that I started doing, especially like these days, where I try to prioritize. Like, for example, when the last trimester ended, we had 2.5 weeks of vacation. And I wanted to go down south and enjoy myself with a friend, right? But I also wanted to exercise because the gym in my apartment complex hasn't been open. And it's been a year and I just miss exercising. And when I started inquiring, I realized that a 6-month membership was basically the cost of my vacation, which is roughly around like 400,000 Korean won, right? So now the choice was, do I go on vacation or do I sign up for the gym membership? I think Layla, circa 2020, August 2020, September, fresh off the plane in Korea, I most likely would have done both. But now that I understand that this is about managing my money and making sure that things goes a long way, I had to make a choice. And I chose my health. So I signed up for my membership and I told my friend, hey, listen, I don't have the money for it. I decided that I was gonna do something else, so it's no longer in my budget. And so don't be afraid to say that to people and say no, and make sure you keep your money. Because again, if your move is fluid and you don't know how long you're gonna stay here, every penny counts. So be wise with your money. Okay, so that is all for the finance part. Let's move on to the second one. Okay, all right, so let's move on to mindset. And it is very sad, but I've noticed that this is something that people do not take into consideration when it comes to moving to Korea or moving anywhere else. They only think about the tangible stuff, the money, where they're gonna stay, what they're gonna do, etc. But you don't think about what's gonna happen here. And the truth is, what's happening here is going to dictate your experience. So basically, what I'm trying to say is you have no idea what's awaiting you. You don't know how things are gonna go for you. And you can watch as many videos as you want about people's experiences. At the end of the day, these are their experiences. There's no guarantee that this is what's gonna happen to you. And because you're not them, you don't have their personality, you are not in the situations, or you might not encounter the situations that they've encountered. So you can watch people's experiences just as entertainment, but don't assume that this is what's gonna happen to you, right? So again, you have no idea. So what I would highly advise that you do as you're working on your money, work on yourself as well. Work on becoming a better person. And most importantly, do an assessment of who you are, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, because most likely you're gonna get here and everything is going to be exacerbated, quite honestly. So be careful and make sure that you are showing up with the best version of yourself possible at that point of time. I personally love personal development. I love to read. I love to improve myself. And I think it's just fun. And I think everybody should take that very seriously. So basically, here's the thing. You might be wondering, okay, how do I work on myself? I would say the number one thing is obviously to do an introspection and see what are the things that you're struggling with. The second step is to get some help. And the cheapest way is to read books about it. So if you're struggling with self-confidence, for example, find a book about it, read the book, do the exercises in the book, and hopefully with time and practice, you're gonna get better. Because reading is not enough. You have to implement what it is that the person is telling you to do. So for example, if you were to move to Korea the way I did, you are going to be alone most of the time, especially at the beginning, right? Right now, I'm no longer alone. But when I first arrived, I would do a lot of things by myself. So what you can do as you are in your home country right now, saving your money, you can also start practicing being on your own, right? Go to a brunch by yourself, go to a museum by yourself, try to do activities by yourself and see how that feels. Do not think that, oh, I'm gonna get here and all those things that I struggle with, miraculously everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be able to just wake up one day and go to brunch by myself and do things by myself. How do you know? You've never done it. So try it in your hometown, in the comfort of your hometown, see how it feels so that you can bring that same energy here in Korea. And that's what I did for 2 years as I was preparing for this trip. I was also mentally preparing for whatever it is that was going to happen. And because you don't know what's going to happen, you want to make sure that you have all the tools to handle whatever comes your way. If it's good, if it's bad, etc. Make sure you have the tools to handle it. And the best way is to equip yourself. I'm very big on journaling, and if you don't journal, I would recommend you do that, especially now as you're like working on your move. Try to like put down on paper what you're feeling, etc. This anxiety, the excitement, etc. So that way, when you get here, you would have, like for example, I remember I wrote myself letters for, every time you feel sad, or if you feel defeated, or if you miss your family, blah, blah, blah. I wrote myself some letters, because usually when you have those emotions overwhelming you, you don't think straight. So you need someone to give you advices, right? So how great would it be if the person giving you that advice is you couple months before, as you were preparing for the trip? How awesome would that be, right? So I have all those letters that I've never opened. Why? Because it's been a year, and I can honestly say that this has been the best decision of my life as far as like personal decision that I made for myself. This was the best by a long shot. And I am glad I'm here, and my experience here has been absolutely amazing. I had a hard time, one in particular, which I think I talked about my video about like learning Korean, the expectations and stuff, which was related to Korean and my expectations as far as like where my Korean skills would be, and like how I was like hard on myself, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to talk about that in the video that's going to be about like my learning experience for the past year. But apart from that, as far as like life in Korea, oh my God, like it has been amazing. And I think the reason why this has been amazing is because of my attitude. Attitude is very important. So I would say mind your attitude. So me as a person, I radiate gratitude. Gratitude for me it's not a word, it's a state of mind, it's a habit, and it's something that's ingrained in me. Therefore, no matter what's happening, I'm always grateful, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And because this is something I've always wanted, something I've worked very hard for, there is nothing anybody can do here in Korea, like nothing anybody can do or say that's going to derail me, that's going to mess up with my mind, that's going to like make me feel unworthy or make me feel like I don't belong. It's like, no, this is not about you. This is like way bigger than this. This is about me, my dream, and the city of Seoul or whatever. So because of this attitude, I handle things very differently. So we could be encountering the same situation. I would see it as something like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever, and move on. But someone else who doesn't have this attitude, because the reason they came to Korea is completely different from mine, would see that and say like, oh my God, are you freaking serious? Like, I can't deal with that. And that person would just, not like Korea at all. So I think that's the reason why my experience has been great. And also because I've been very, very lucky. I'm a big believer of like energy, the law of attraction, and the way you are, the way you behave, the vibration at which you function attracts people from that same vibration as well. So if I'm cheerful and I'm happy and I want to be here and I'm happy to be here, I'm going to attract people who are going to make my experience better. But if you're like always down and hating it, you would have this attitude and your energy would be super low, and you're going to start attracting those bad experiences. Again, this is my personal belief, right? So mind your attitude as you come here, and that's going to make a big, big difference. I cannot for the life of me, and I am not trying to pretend or trying to make it feel like it's rosy. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you would know what's going on. If there is something that bothers me, I will talk about it, and I will talk about like how I'm handling it. But it has been great. Even my mother, who was like super worried, and we would talk like all the time, she was like super amazed at how I was handling things, and she was like very happy for me. She's like, wow, I'm very impressed. And even I'm super impressed. I thought I was gonna be depressed. I thought I was gonna miss my friends, my family, but I'm fine. And I am happy. So, and that has, and again, and you would watch that and you would think, oh my God, if I come to Korea, this is exactly what's gonna happen to me. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That's why I'm saying, make sure you know why you're coming here. Make sure you have goals and stuff like that. Make sure you work on yourself as a person. Make sure you have the tools to handle whatever situation comes your way. And make sure you have the right attitude. And again, situation may arise. Okay, I'm gonna tell you about one situation, for example. We went to Itaewon. It was back in November 2020. It was very cold. We went to Itaewon for the first time. It was my first time, since I came back, going to Itaewon to a club. And I was with my friend. And she is, African, but she doesn't look like it. She's like white passing. And it's the two of us, and we go to this club, and the guy's like, no, sorry, you can't get in. And at first, we did not really hear it, so he had to repeat it. And then he said, no, you can't get in. Why? Because it's Korean only. So basically, we were victim of like a racist act, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's something I've heard of, so I wasn't surprised. It happened to me, okay, fine. My reaction was like, oh, okay, bye. I mean, what do you want me to do? Like fight and give you my money? Like, why would I give you my money when you don't want me anyway? And then the person in front of me was obviously, you could tell he was, that's his job, but it's not his fault, right? So he was a bit embarrassed by the whole situation, and I wasn't gonna let it drag. I was like, okay, fine, let's go to another place, right? But my friend was like, So the next day she went online and like wrote some stuff about it, and people handle things differently, right? So for someone else, that kind of situation would have maybe derailed their entire experience, and they would have been like, oh my God, my first time going out in Itaewon, the neighborhood with all the foreigners and stuff, being rejected, and that person might have like PTSD and not want to try any other clubs ever again. But my attitude wasn't that, because it's something I've heard about. It happened to me. I had the tools to handle the situation, and my tool was, you're not going to mess up my evening. This is not your fault, so I'm not going to argue with you. This is your boss, and I don't know who your boss is, and I just don't have time to figure out the ins and out. I'm just going to move on with my life and go where I am wanted. Now, some people might react differently, but this is my tool, and this is the way I handled it. That's why you might not even hear me mention that event to anybody else, because it's irrelevant to my experience as a whole. Okay? So yeah, basically this is me just telling you, work on your mindset, because it's gonna make a huge difference as you arrive here. Work on yourself, get all the tools necessary, mind your attitude, be grateful no matter what. And if something bad happens to you, take it in, cry. I've cried several times for like stupid shit. Oh, am I allowed to curse here? So I cried for like stupid stuff. I cried for stuff that were not stupid, but I'm not saying ignore your emotions. I am saying if it's a bad thing, take it in, okay? Cry about it, deal with it, and then move on. That's it. It's not, when I say my life is beautiful and I love it, it doesn't mean that it's rosy every single day. It's not. But the good outweighs the bad, and whenever the bad happens, I take it in, because bad is also part of the growing process. I always have something to learn from those bad experiences, or those feelings that are not fun, such as sadness, disappointment, all of that. I've felt those, right? But I take them in, I embrace them, I enjoy them, I learn from them, and I move on. Yeah, that's it. So I think I rambled, kind of, sorry. But yeah, so this is it for today's video. I am going to work on the second part, where we are going to talk about dating. We're going to talk about, life in general, and then also the Korean learning process as well. So thank you so much if you've watched that video all the way until the end. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever it is that you please, and I will see you in the next video, or like you will see me in the next video, and I would read your comments, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Bye. Mwah!